What is up, guys, and welcome back to the Red Chaos One channel, and back to the second part of my look at the history of Marvel Comics. Now, if you missed the first video, you will find a link to it in the description below, and I highly recommend that you go and watch it for you to understand what is happening. That video tells a lot about the founder of Marvel Comics, Martin Goodman. And it comes all the way to the creation of Captain America and the hiring of big figures like Joe Simon, Jack Kirby, and Stan Lee. So I recommend you go check out that video. Now, before you do that, you have to remember the usual. If you liked the video, you can leave a like. If you haven't yet subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. I very much appreciate it, and it's very helpful to the channel. If people who are watching it are subscribed, it's the only way that the video is helped through the algorithm, and you can also share it to other people. I'd very much appreciate it. And you can leave a comment on what you thought about the video and what else you would like to see me do in future. I'd very much like to hear from you. Now, when we left off, Martin Goodman was swimming in money. With his A-team of comic book creators in the likes of Jack Kirby, Joe Simon, and the young Stan Lee, they were in what we could call the original Marvel Golden Age. Everything was in a high. The success of Captain America #1 had put Marvel on a momentum wave, seeing the launching of new titles like USA Comics, All Winners Comics, and The Young Allies, a book which featured the sidekicks of both the Human Torch and Captain America, Toro and Bucky Barnes, or just Bucky. Stan Lee started to get more occasional assignments for actual comic books this time, and by the summer he was writing adventures for Golden Age characters like the Destroyer and Jack Frost. Unfortunately, in this high, we would see conflict arise between Goodman, Simon, and Kirby. Now, Morris Coyne approached Simon and informed him that Goodman was shorting him and Kirby on their royalties. From the Captain America titles. And instead of confronting Goodman, Simon and Kirby called Jack Leibowitz at DC Comics. Leibowitz had made it very clear that he was interested in working with them or hiring them for DC Comics. Leibowitz told them that they could make $500 a week working with DC Comics. Simon and Kirby both agreed to this, and they rented a cheap room at a nearby hotel and worked after hours developing projects for Timely's competition. Now, I don't know what they were thinking, but they got extremely lax with this thing of working for the competition while still being hired by Timely Comics, that they started going to do these moonlighting projects after lunch. And Stan Lee took notice and grew suspicious, and he started insisting on tagging along to lunch with them. They reluctantly let him in on their secret, and soon he was joining them during lunchtimes at the hotel, getting in the way, as Simon put it. The extracurricular activities didn't remain a secret for long, as would be expected. Within days, the Goodman brothers surrounded Simon and Kirby for a confrontational firing. So, yeah, Kirby and Simon left the company at this point. And Kirby was also very, very convinced that Stan Lee had basically been a snitch. He had ratted them out. I'm not sure if this is true, but that's what Kirby believed. He's said to have told Simon that the next time I see that little son of a bitch, I'm going to kill him. Those are his words, apparently, to Joe Simon. So, Kirby was pissed. Now, the Goodman decided to take advantage of the eager young protege. He named the teenager Stan Lee, who only possessed 1 year experience working for Timely Comics, as the editor in chief. Yeah, a teenager was made editor in chief of a comic book company, so I'm not sure if this confirms that Lee might have ratted them out, or if just because the biggest guys, Simon and Kirby, had left and they decided to just put the guy who had worked directly with them. I'm not sure. So possibly Lee had ratted them out. Possibly. Now, according to Lee, he stated that Martin put me in charge temporarily until he could find a replacement. So possibly Lee was only supposed to be in that position for a short while. But Martin never replaced Lee. He remained editor-in-chief. And then the bombs fell in Pearl Harbor, and the US found itself drawn into the sequel no one in their right minds wanted to happen. Except for these guys, I guess. Even when World War II started and Lee joined the army, he continued writing comic books for Goodman. Lee was assigned to the Signal Corps on November 9th, reporting to duty in Queens. At first, he was climbing telephone poles and stringing wires to radio communications, but eventually word got out that he was a writer. Soon he was writing posters about venereal diseases, manuals about tanks and tank operations, and cartoons to train payroll officers. Transferred to North Carolina and then to Indiana, he still wrote the occasional Captain America book. That's, as I stated, he was still working for Goodman even while the war was still going on. Only now he was credited as Private Stan Lee. So yes, Private Stan Lee wrote Captain America. After a German U-boat sank 2 tankers near Long Island in 1942, Martin Goodman became an air warden, patrolling the neighborhoods surrounding Woodmere, making sure that residents kept their windows blocked at night so that no light could be visible from the ocean. So Goodman drove around Howlett Bay. He and his son Edain would stop at all the newsstands to make sure Timely's product was prominently displayed. Goodman wasn't just protecting America, he was looking out for Captain America too. You could say Goodman was also looking out for himself, but hey, I can't blame the guy for wanting to make sure his business doesn't get screwed over by the war. Throughout the war, Captain America was the company's best-selling title, a leader in a field that was rapidly growing. In less than 2 years, the number of comic books sold each month grew from 15 million to 25 million. By 1943, it was a $30 million per year industry. A large percentage of those sales were to overseas GIs, and Captain America wouldn't have found a better audience with stories like Trapped in the Nazi Stronghold, Blitzkrieg to Berlin, and Tojo's Terror Masters guaranteed to fly off PX racks. The average print run of Timely Comics during the war, recalled Vince Fago, approached $500,000 per issue. So there was a lot of money, and contrary to what weirdos like Garth Ennis would say, actual soldiers liked Captain America and didn't consider him disrespectful to them. Someone is quoted to have stated, "Sometimes we'd put out 5 books a week or more, and you'd see the numbers come back and could tell that Goodman was a millionaire." So yeah, Goodman was making a stupid amount of money at this point. He's made so much money, he moved into a sprawling colonial mansion with 5 fireplaces and 4 master bedrooms in the upscale neighborhood of Woodmere, next door to a country club. So Goodman at this point had made it. He had made the American dream. He was rich. Pity he still treated his employees like shit though. Just 21, he was just 21, Stan Lee was discharged from the military. Lee was by then a seasoned comic book veteran with a lot of writing experience. He oversaw a creative staff that had grown to 20 artists. They gathered in a large office they called the Bullpen, where they worked together, gave one another tips, discussed stories, and argued about New York's baseball teams, the Yankees and the Dodgers. Lee gave the artists assignments trying to keep them happy and making sure that the whole comic book production process kept moving. And of course, he kept writing. He loved the creative part, coming up with characters, generating plots, and just writing dialogue. The role of businessman was fulfilled by Goodman, and that separation between him and the artists, with Lee overseeing the creative side, was one of the reasons why many people think they were successful. Which perhaps is something modern day companies can learn, to not be so overbearing on their creators. Our friend Stan the Man Lee was a bit of a big playboy for most of his life at this point. But the bachelor life reached its end in 1947 when, through a cousin, Lee met a stunning British hat model named Joanne Bucock. A year into her own marriage, she was bored already. He convinced her to go to Reno for a divorce, and he flew out to Nevada. They were married on December the 5th, and they took a train back to New York, but skipped the honeymoon. There was work to do, and Lee respected his job. You gotta respect the guy's work ethic. Unfortunately, comic book trends were changing at a whiplashing speed. See, post-war America suddenly became obsessed with the plague of juvenile delinquency and began to pry crime-themed comics from the hands of its youth, and noticing the adult themes that could be in some of these books. And suddenly, you know the thing, it happened back in the day with the Satanic Panic. Basically, old people decide this new thing is what's causing all them damn kids to be violent, or to be more violent than they were in their times. So yeah, all that. And some small towns even went as far as to organize comic book bonfires. Scolding articles ran in Times and Callers, and a few towns and cities, including Detroit, introduced legislation to ban the scourge of comic books. Yes, no matter how stupid you think your government is, just know that your leaders didn't sit down to decide to ban comic books. Sensing the need for preemptive action, a group of publishers huddled and devised a series of content guidelines. Just as Hollywood had done earlier with its Hays Code 20 years earlier, the Comics Code was coming into being. Meanwhile, superheroes had waned in their popularity. You see, lacking the Axis enemies and the dedicated readership of most US servicemen who at this point didn't have the time to read comic books and were probably too busy to make ends meet and put food on the table. So yeah, comic books were not in a good place at this point. And just to show you how bad it is, by the end of 1949, Nemo the Submariner and the Human Torch had vanished from Timely Comics entirely. These two characters who were part of Timely's building block, who were part of its initial success with Marvel Comics #1, who were big during the Great War, during World War II, they were just gone. And only Captain America remained, and that was just Captain America in name only. Now, he wasn't punching Nazis, he was in weird, bizarre horror stories in a comic book title that rightfully deserves the name Captain America's Weird Tales. So yeah, comic books weren't doing so good. And it would just get worse. Because in 1950, the true body blow that brought the entire not even the entire superhero, I mean the entire comic book industry to its knees would come in the form of one Frederick Wertham. Frederick Wertham. An absolute bastard who I will cover in my next video. which shall be the first dark age of Marvel Comics. Because look, I don't have enough energy to rant and rage about Frederick Wortham. He deserves his own video and the damage he did to the comic book industry. And I'll also talk about how we're still feeling it. But that's for the next video. And I'm going to start working on it soon, so I hope you can wait long enough to see it. But I hope you like this video. I hope you leave a comment on what you thought about it and what else you could like to see me do in future. And I'm also very hopeful that you can share it so that more people can know about the video, about the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I'm very thankful for that. And this has been Red Chaos 1 signing off.